right, Chad, I need you to do me a favor. Look how comfortable Lala is down there. Now that is just a regular dog bed, and she's super comfortable there. But you can get to the next level of comfort by getting yourself, boom, a SMITE Maxnomic chair. Not only is it super comfortable, but it does go well with all of your SMITE branded things. You can use code SMITEMAX at needforseat.com and get yourself an exclusive ward when you order the chair. Flex on people in-game with that one. It's up there, in my mind, with Poseidon, with Archon Thanatos, and again, it goes great with any like Smite-themed paraphernalia you have. Even this one, this Cursed Paradigm bracelet I have on my right-hand side, goes pretty well with this one. And aggro, I don't know why I had to bring that one up. I just saw it sitting on my desk, and so had to work it in somehow because I had it there. But we'll leave it in the past as we move to the future. Looking at the next set, Radiance taking on eUnited. And this one's actually a little more interesting than I think anything we could have assumed coming into this. Radiance aren't on the hot streak they once were.
That might be the understatement of the century. I'll try and make it an equally cool understatement. Gore, your shirt's okay. Like, that's the same thing as saying that Radiance is not exactly red hot anymore, because your shirt is bomb, and Radiance has been free-falling as of late. 0-6 in their last 6 sets. They were 7-1 before their break, Gore. 7-1. They are now 7-7, and they have absolutely struggled in every single one of those. Now, it's not that they haven't found any individual game wins. We see glimpses of that 7-1 Radiance team, but it's been a while since that has seen the real light of day. On the other side, eUnited is kind of on the opposite. I mean, they're 3-1 since picking up Baskin. They are recovering from the spanking that SSG gave them yesterday, so maybe that's Radiance's best plan, is hope that eUnited's mental still isn't recovered after how dominantly they were destroyed yesterday.
Yeah, that's the thing, is when your one is up against eUnited, I think you're not up against SSG, you're not as upset about that loss, I think, as you could be. But it is still a little mental recovery, and speaking of mental recovery, that's what we need to see out of Radiance here through more than anything. Like you said, a 6-set loss streak. They were 7-1 once upon a time, 7-7 now as they move forward. And aggro, before the switch, before the pickup, before all of what's happened to eUnited, the last time these teams met, they went 2-1 anyway. It was a 3-game set, so eUnited seemed to have Radiance's number dialed in.
I mean, it could be the case. This was one of these teams that Radiance occasionally struggled with. I think that it's a team that really can punish you for not being where you need to be at the right time, or not having your draft really locked in, and that's really been the case for Radiance lately. Aurora has certainly not had that same level of impact we've come to expect from one of the greatest supports to ever touch the game. He just has not been at that level for a little bit now. He's gone to the Khepri a lot recently. That's the pick that I think everyone's going to be watching for from him. But if I'm eUnited, the big thing that you could do is get him something like Yemoja, one of his comfort picks. Yemoja Hercules, I think you still have to respect ban against this guy every single game.
And that's the thing that's, like you said, has been interesting. You're talking about Aurora during those highlights, and I was just thinking, when was the last time we saw him play Cabrakan? And when now? Like, do you even think he would lock it in? Just because they've been so focused on things like Terra. I believe Khepri has been up there as well. Just things that haven't quite felt the same for them. Meanwhile, if you pivot and look at the other side for eUnited here, Gino has been more than willing to pick a lot of these aggressive supports. It's been paying off for them. Again, everything except for that SSG set has been going well for them. And even there were some nuggets of good for eUnited's play. I mean, what are they doing? Not only to bounce back, but coming into this set to try and control and corral Radiance and just keep them locked down.
I think the big thing for eUnited is pretty similar to what I was saying about Radiance, honestly, is that they have to make sure their drafting is in order. Whenever eUnited struggle, I think a lot of it comes down to the drafting phase, and there are times where they get a little bit caught up and make some picks that I don't think really end up benefiting them all that much. I'm talking about Herwin's Vulcan a couple weeks ago that really did not look inspiring up against Renegades. I thought in particular this week, Scream really did not perform to the same level that he has been as of late. Since Baskin joined, I think Scream has looked like an entirely different player, playing much more confidently, getting leads, pushing leads much more effectively than he was in the past. Against Cheerio, that really wasn't the case. Cherry was kind of all over the map, and Scream was really left scrambling, trying to pick up the pieces. If we're going to see an eUnited win, I think it's got to come from better play from Scream.
Well, we've been looking at some of the supports, you looking there at the jungler, but in the matchup versus Aurora, there's maybe some question marks that have been going on. He's been questionable the last few games, and so who better to figure out what they're going to do against Aurora than the support who has to do it? We have an interview with Gino right now.
All right, everybody, I am here with Gino, the new support for eUnited, talking to him about their matchup against Radiance. First off, you know, Gino, there's some role swaps, some roster swaps. Sebastian comes in, you come in, Snoopy swaps back to Hunter, and yet you guys are on a 3-set win streak up to this point. Did you guys expect as a squad to find immediate success to the tune of 3 straight wins, or did you think there'd be a few more growing pains?
I think this was kind of expected. We played 2 of the lower end teams, kind of around where we are, and we played Sanguine, who is probably middle of the pack right now. So these teams, we felt like we could win these games, so I don't think it was out of our expectations.
And your opponent today, admittedly, I think is kind of hard to pin down. I mean, standings-wise, still, you know, upper middle of the pack at the moment, but they're on a bit of a slide. Radiance, of course, who I'm talking about. What do you think about Radiance at the moment? What's your confidence level going into this set?
I think for us, this is a winnable game. They've dropped, I think, 3 games to PK, Obey, and Sanguine. PK, Obey, and Radiance. No, PK, Obey, Renegades, sorry, if I remember correctly. And all those teams, I think, are sub 500, so I think we can maybe keep that trend going and beat them too.
It's going to be a fun set to watch. I'm very excited. And I want to pick your brain a little bit as well, how the synergy building has been going with Snoopy. Again, I mean, obviously, a lot of this has worked out very quickly for you guys. 3-set win streak, as we've already mentioned. What's it like kind of playing with Snoopy there in the long lane? And have you already seen pretty immediate growth from when you first came to the team to where you are now?
Me and Snoopy played last year together on Armada, along with Scream and Baskins, so we kind of have that synergy already. So there haven't been any, you know, growing pains playing along with Snoopy, but I think as a whole we kind of understand how we all want to play, and it makes it a lot easier for us.
It's a really good point that you guys already have some of that previously built up synergy. I definitely think it's been a talking point for us as well. Kind of final thoughts. I mean, you and Snoopy, we've already talked about you guys together going up against Aurora and Cyclone Spin. What are your expectations for that lane? What's it like playing against those guys?
Cyclone and Aurora, you know, they're world champions. They're probably 2 of the best players in their roles. So I think for us, it's just come and play our game and just play confident, and we can win easily.
Hey, more of the same for you guys. Likely a win here today. It's been a blast to watch you guys, you know, build up and get some good wins under the eUnited belt. So, Gino, thanks for sitting down with me, and best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Aggro, it sounds like they're pretty sure of their capabilities here if they're eUnited coming into it. A lot of the synergy that they had mentioned has existed in a previous lifetime for them as not eUnited, I guess is the better way to look at it. And again, a lot of it seems to exist here, although you had highlighted kind of coming out of it that maybe Gino has to step up, but maybe more so Scream, who didn't quite have the games he wanted to the other day.
Yeah, I think Gino's really been playing above expectations at the SPL level. I mean, for those fans who might not have watched him play in the SEC under that Armada banner, or whenever he was playing under Luminosity a few years ago in the SPL, they might be surprised at how well Gino's playing. I expected around this level, but I think Gino's probably even surpassed what I thought he was going to be able to do this early on in the SPL. It was big, even though they lost that game, for him to look really, really comfortable and solid on the Yemoja pick, because now that's a ban that teams have to be ready to make up against eUnited.
Well, hey, the only way to figure out whether or not they'll find themselves comfortable is to go here, picks and bans, as we look at what these teams are going to be bringing. Bellini's excited, as you see in the backgrounds. We'll have to see whether or not they're going to be able to match up to a dog's pure enjoyment of watching SMITE. when it comes down to it. Radiance, I mean, there's a lot of interesting target bans that can come through, and I'll be honest, this was not the one that I was thinking. The Cerberus, almost the only thing Baskin has played over there in the solo lane, taken away. How do you feel about this?
I think it's fine. I think that getting Benji a good lane matchup here is one of the easiest routes to victory for Radiance, because you look at what SSG did to Baskin in their set yesterday. They took him off the map early. They made sure that he was behind. And it's no secret that Baskin is the leader for this eUnited team. It's the whole reason why they made the roster change in the first place, was to bring that presence to the team. The easiest way to take a shot caller out of the game is to set them behind. Then they're too worried about their level of farm, what they are doing, making sure that they are impactful instead of managing the entire team. I think that's exactly what SSG did early in their set yesterday. And I think Radiance are going to look to do it again here today. Give Benji something that can bully Baskin, who still has not looked as comfortable in lane as I was expecting. I think that's been the weakest part of his game so far. And if you can try and find a way to exploit that, then it's going to be a much easier path to victory for Radiance.
Well, like we saw in their last set, it's still 2 target bans up against eUnited, but it's the Yanis along with the Cerberus as opposed to the Bastet jumping in there. Persephone banned out by Radiance, I guess not wanting it since they are first pick. Hercules, Yamoja, Amaterasu banned on the other side. Cupid, Rom available. Cupid has been a big pick for Radiance, so I wouldn't be surprised if they go that first. But specifically going into, you know, like the Persephone or maybe the lack of a jungler right there for Scream, do you think this opens up eUnited to pick something for him very early on in their draft, or should they wait a little while still for that kind of counter pick phase there towards the bottom 2 before eUnited scoops something like that up?
Interesting. So I was going to say it depends on what Radiance go number 1 here, because they have loved picking Rom early for Cyclone. They picked Cupid early for Cyclone. They picked Olorun early for Cyclone. And if they were going to go Olorun, I was going to advocate for an early Rat pick for Scream, because that's a matchup that he has looked very, very good in basically every single set that they've played it. But with Radiance going first pick Wukong, giving eUnited priority on which hunter they want to take, I think that means that Scream's pick rather is going to have to go a little bit later in the draft, because I would anticipate something like this: Kuzenbo, Rom, top 2, eUnited gets the hunter they prefer, and something to solidify Geno's God pool. Radiance is likely going to go Cupid, and maybe something for Tings, or the Khepri wouldn't surprise me either, just based on their recent draft. Could go something like Cupid and Khepri here for solidify your duo lane, and that means eUnited might go into Baskin in that 3rd pick to make sure that he doesn't get even more picks banned away from him.
Well, BMT's been loving this Raw lately, and he's going to go ahead and lock it in. We've had some interesting shots from him, just over-the-wall, blind kills that have been able to come through for him. But I don't know, it's so weird. We live in a world where Sun Wukong Raw are the top 2 on one side. I look at Kuzenbo Rom, and I'm a little scared of that one there for eUnited. But they do still get that Cupid, as you had kind of highlighted, coming in for Cyclone Spin. It's been a comfort pick for them, even if it isn't the number 1. But do you think this is, again, just a 3 so far for Radiance that have really screamed, yes, you had to prioritize these?
I'm okay with where Radiance has gone with these picks. I'm a little bit concerned on exactly what Aurora is going to grab. If I'm on eUnited, I'm definitely banning the Khepri, because that's been the most successful pick for Aurora as of late. And as we kind of highlighted, he's struggled more than he's had success recently. So you want to take him off the gods that he feels the most comfortable on. I think if I'm eUnited here, I probably ban Khepri, Hun, Bats, because those have been the 2 best for Aurora and adapting specifically, the 2 guys who still need to draft here for Radiance. But I think I'm fine with taking double shots at Aurora. I just think that double banning Assassins would be a bit of a mistake here for eUnited. I think that Khepri in particular, unless you're planning on giving Scream the Achilles jungle, which he loves to do, then I think that that's going to be a little bit of a mistake from them. I wouldn't be letting Aurora get Khepri here.
And that's kind of the glory of this Hebo, right? Where you are a little just ambiguous overall in your picks. It could be the jungle, could go to mid, and you're happy if you're eUnited knowing exactly that. Because what are Radiance going to ban? Are they going to start to try and isolate even more of what Heroine could bring into the mid lane? Or do they go for the Assassins? They do think that at least it has that potential to go to mid, so they're going to try to stifle Scream a little bit. They get rid of that Bastet. And now we'll have to see if eUnited go for that double assassin ban that you didn't quite like as much, or if they do target out some of the supports here in this next one. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, if you look at it, it has been realistically that Khepri lately that has hovered up towards the top for them, at least in terms of pressure. But they're going to go for the Raven. And honestly, it is a very moment, just the way you put it. That's the only reaction I can have to that. They've both been pretty successful. I mean, Raven, looking at it, won 6 out of the 9 games here in Phase 2 that Radiance has played him, save for yesterday's games if they picked him. But it still doesn't scream as much control to me as something like a Hunbats here.
No, Hunbats looks pretty good, but that's not really a comfort pick for Scream as of late, at least based on what he's been picking. I think Rat is the best option here for Scream if they want to let Baskin get the final counter pick, but Baskin knows his lane matchup. I think it's probably better for Baskin to take his God in this slot than worry about getting Scream his, but the Rat, if that's the direction they're going to go either way, ends up making sense. Just think that now if I'm Radiance, I'm happy that I get to bottom 2 a pick that they were top 3ing earlier on in the week and last week with this Khepri, if you're in Aurora's shoes. Or they could go back to something like the Terra, though I don't know how much success he's really seen on that.
Well, it would be then a real sustained game. I mean, you talk about Wukong's ability to survive, then Ra healing, QB healing, you put Terra healing in there, it's insane. Although if you put a Rez coming through with Khepri, maybe even more insane, honestly, at that point. I mean, imagine Ra getting dove in a late-game team fight, and then he's just back to continue healing. But instead, it's a Guan Yu. Him or Wukong able to kind of flex over there into the support role, but we've seen Guan more often than not. Prot Shred, he's got healing. Do you think he's kind of the aggressive play that we expect to see from Aurora, maybe coming back in this pick?
Yeah, I don't think there's any way you take the Wukong out of Benji's hands. And finally, Baskin goes to the signature pick for himself in the solo lane in this Vamana. I think it's a great matchup against Ra. You just get to chase him down. He doesn't have any real recourse to get away from you. Love this pick for Baskin. The Awilix Guan Yu is not what I was expecting here from Radiance, but these are classic picks for adapting in Aurora, but both dating back a little bit longer than maybe some of our viewers might be familiar with. Season 3 was a big year for adapting to play a ton of Awilish, and clearly Sam for Soccer is inspiring junglers everywhere to not worry too much about how many leaps you have on the other side, because there are 0 leaps for eUnited. You do have the Wukong set up for you. And then the Guan, I think this is really there to shut down this Hebo. And I've been saying that this Guan pick is under the radar because it just does so well against so many meta mid picks right now. Ra, Hebo, Hera. What do they do against Guan ult? Hebo's got the best option, at least, in using his ultimate or the slow immunity to get away a little bit, but that isn't enough to peel away that cavalry charge. I think Radiance's composition is a little bit risky. It depends on how well Hurwin can stay alive in particular on this Hebo, but if Hurry can get his damage off in this game, I think Radiance is going to have a pretty tough time.
I think this is an interesting one. I mean, Radiance have brought the spice back into their picks. It's just whether or not the life is going to be back for them here in this game up against eUnited. A lot of people have been favoring eUnited. Let's see what they can give us here in game number 1.
Thanks, Score and Aggro. Finch and Mifflin here as we move into Game 1, Radiance and eUnited. This is a matchup that used to be heavily favored towards Radiance, but now we might have come full circle to where eUnited are favored. We'll find out what chat thinks. Make sure you vote in the poll that will be showing up there in chat. And Miff, I know we already heard from you. You're leaning eUnited, but now that you've seen the drafts, you've seen this Guan Yu, this Awilish on the other side. Does that still hold true?
It does. I think I echo the sentiment that Aggro brings up, that Radiance's draft is going to be very execution-centric. BMT is going to have a very hard time escaping Baskin. Baskin has multiple targets that he could dive easily. Cupid's Fields of Love being one of the best disengage tools for a hunter. Yeah, not anymore. I mean, you got a giant CC immune baby stomping on your forehead. It's wild what he's going to be able to do once this game rolls around into the late game. And Hurrywin playing a pick that isn't Yanis, not normally something that you'd really get super excited about, but he's playing Hebo. I mean, Hurrywin is one of the most mechanically talented mid laners in the league, and now he's playing a pick that I think is just going to be inherently better. eUnited's got a very strong draft for themselves. I'm worried about how Radiance is going to be able to transition into the mid game.
It might be tough for them, especially because Scream should be dominating that early to mid-game time on this Ratatosker pick. Now, Awilish probably a bit better than most at contesting him in that meantime, but keeping up with those rotations through the Cosmos, not going to be easy, even with Suku. And Scream builds his rat, a little differently than everyone else. We'll have to keep our eye on exactly how he chooses to go, but I imagine it'll be the Thistlethorn Acorn with those 5 Acorns to extend the Acorn Blast, but adapting, getting aggressive over in solo already, and Baskin falling early. Myth, this is something we've started to see from teams playing eUnited, an early game gank on Baskin.
Yeah, is it too late to change my mind? I think Radiance have a pretty good start here for themselves. Baskin falling on the tail end there is going to put him behind in this lane pretty horribly. Now he's going to lose a lot of that kill potential that he might have had. He's going to have a much harder time keeping up with rotations from Benji, and now further ganks are going to be looking very good. Baskin's in a critical state where until level 5 he doesn't really have any survivability outside of his dash, which is very easy to catch out on a Willix. You have to show your back if you want to escape away. Means the knockup can come through pretty easily, whereas Benji on this Sun Wukong for a Ratatasker is going to be very hard to gank. He's going to knock them up out of the way. He can go to the bird form to escape out of the stun range. I think that just in the first 2 minutes, adapting has made a huge stamp on the game.
He has gotten involved with this Wheelish right off the bat, and I think it's good just in general for him to try and be active, because we know that Scream at the very least should be on this Ratatosker. This will be, especially once his ult comes in, one of his strongest points in the game. With that stun utility, with the ability to get in there and shred prods and keep up with the dash, this Rat loves to be active right from the beginning, but a Wheelish already challenging that in Adapting's hands. Now, Adapting rotating over to see about perhaps a blue buff invade. They're here a little early, which is right on time when they're looking to strip farm away from the opposition. But the rotation should be coming. Scream starting to head this way too. So they're not going to stick around for that buff invade. They'll just clear the farm. No, they are heading back up, but Scream is lying in wait, has the blink if he wants to get active, and Adapting does not have beads. Scream dashes in, knowing he has the advantage, but the leap, the feather step over the stun means this fight should now be favoring Radiance. He gets the knockup, and Scream has to retreat. Baskin comes in just in time. Suku over the wall forces Scream to blink defensively. Benji comes back, says, "I dare you to come back in, little rat," and I think Radiance may have done enough.
They should have done enough, but maybe not, as we see Baskin sticks around. Adapting still level 3 has spent a lot of time rotating around this solo side of the map, and he is going to be the first one to that blue buff, and Baskin being completely might just have to let this one go. Ratatasker rotates in with the advantage there, having a level lead over Adapting, but wasn't quite able to find the Acorn Blast. That would have definitely changed the pace of that fight. Benji is forced to use to expend that blink to try and chase down the kill. Doesn't really get much value out of it there either. So I think even though Scream doesn't succeed in confirming his own buff, he does remove a layer of danger from Baskin's lane. Now Baskin, for the next 90 seconds, won't have to worry about a blink engage from the Sun Wukong.
And Myth, I feel like there's almost no time to use Feather Step in response to Acorn Blast. I mean,
It's a read.
You'd have to have a soul read, I agree. So really, I think Scream is so favored there to just hold the Acorn Blast and guarantee he's able to get that off. But really, it changes that whole right side gank when Scream misses that ability. It's so much of Rat's early potential before he has that ultimate, in that he has such a confirmable stun. So the blue buff invade goes through. Baskin should have fallen further behind, though Benji still only level 4 without having completely pushed that wave just yet. So still holding in close is Baskin over there, but Benji certainly has the advantage now that he's ticked over to level 5 and has that blue buff to work with.
Yeah, Benji should have about a half-level lead at this point, but it should be more. The lead's been cut because Adapting spent so much time hovering in that lane, whereas Scream was clearing his own jungle. So not only did Adapting fall slightly behind Scream, but he cuts the lead that Benji would have had, allowing Baskin a clear path back into an even state. A little bit of a misplay around the jungle. Had Adapting found that blue buff invade a little bit earlier, or even took the fight a little bit better, it would have gone much, much better for Radiance. But right now, I'd say largely an even game. The gold lead is starting to grow slightly in favor of Radiance, about 1,200 separating these two teams. But with this continuous pressure on the solo side of the map from both junglers, it's allowed both mid laners to free farm the entirety of the game. BMT and Hurrywin have been under zero pressure, and when Ahibo's free farming, that's what I like to see.
While Radiance are on their way over, Aurora has this Cursed Ankh as their first relic, so you know they're looking to get aggressive on Baskin and shut down that healing and Colossal Fury, but eUnited rotate over 4 in response. Benji gets pulled in, takes a ton of damage for free. Crushing Wave comes through from Hurry as well, as now comes the knockup from Scream, and that leaves Adapting and Aurora low. Aurora dropped first. A great response from eUnited to bring 4 members over right from the get-go.
Gino still has Blink, so it looks like he's trying to catch someone rotating through the jungle. Adapting's very low here. They know where you're going. It's going to be the blue buff, Scream, and Gino moving in, but it's confirmed a little bit too quickly. This shouldn't amount to much.
A stun comes through, but as anticipated, Benji able to use that 72 transformations Ox form to make it right back over to the Tier 1 tower. So they do end up losing that one pick. Aurora died. And without getting the blue buff there, obviously it's in favor of eUnited, but at least Radiance get back, defend their own blue, and Benji doesn't miss much farm. But again, I want to bring up this Cursed Ankh as this first relic here. I mean, there's a chance that this could also be for some lifesteal from Hebos. They love to rely on that too. How do you like this first relic pickup for Aurora?
I think that Ankh might have been a bit of a missed opportunity here. It's going to help out a lot once he levels it up. Any healing that goes the way of Baskin once he goes into his ultimate is immediately going to make him take a little bit more damage, but it could have been something along the lines of Sunder. Cursed Ankh will be decently valuable into Hurrywin if he does decide to go lifesteal, but we haven't been seeing that too much from the Hebo. I mean, Snoopy's lifesteal is going to be weakened a little bit, and speaking of Snoopy, take a peek at his build, something a little bit new and interesting out of the Hunter role. Bloodforge getting picked up first overall. Should help out his trade potential a little bit. His power spikes are going to come a lot more quickly, and it should synergize well with Rama's ultimate, just getting that raw 70 power just tacked onto your build. But it is going to slow him down a little bit. That's a very expensive item.
It is. I wonder if that situation where Snoopy backed, realized he had enough gold for that, and didn't like, finishing Devos maybe behind and going into like a Boots 1 or something, ends up with the Bloodforge instead. And as you mentioned, this is a ton of power, and that is kind of the thing that makes the Silver Branch build so strong, is that hitting 2 gives you even more power, and your ult does so much damage as Cyclone Spin has to use beads to get away from Gino's pressure in left. Bloodforge should even compound that further as a big grouping from Radiance ends up missing Whirlwind and Scream, so they'll come underneath, get there too late to defend the red buff, and eUnited just get to leave. Now they've got the superior numbers advantage as Scream blinks in first, looking for Aurora, who has to disengage. Over the wall comes Adaptive, but he takes more damage than he gives, so the knockup comes from Scream, who used the ultimate, but Aurora lives through it all. Snipe from Ting's Errant, going towards nothing, and eUnited get away with a great red buff invade.
Yeah, it seems like Aurora's struggling to hit his pace on this Guan Yu as of yet. You want him to be playing incredibly aggressive in the early game, getting those Taolus or the ultimate engages, but he hasn't been allowed that opportunity. Whereas Gino, I think, has been doing a much better job of getting proactive on the map, but he might be caught out trying to do exactly that. The knock-up from Benji is good, but no follow-up. This fight should fizzle out. But eUnited are doing a very good job playing the map. That 1,000 gold lead that was just a moment ago has been already cut by a couple of nice invades.
They've been very willing to group, haven't they? Brought 4 members over to defend blue buff from the invade from Radiance. Just stacked as 4 in the jungle and looked for a red buff invade of their own. I think they're trying to say they're not going to give Radiance these favored fights. A Cyclone Spin and Snoopy trade ults over here in left. The Snipes land, but the Heart Bomb lands even more from Cyclone Spin. Not enough to get the kill on Snoopy, but Adapting cleans this up 100% of the time. Doesn't get the knockup, but truly doesn't need it. Feather Step is so much damage, and Snoopy ends up going down. A great trade there for Cyclone Spin, as now he gets a bit of a lead over Snoopy.
Yeah, Cyclone Spin was favored to win that team fight either way, consider that one-on-one fight, rather, because he already has the Ninja Tabi built up. He's got the additional attack speed, the power isn't really going to be that much of a difference maker this early in the game, even though it did make Snoopy's ultimate absolutely swing. But this is a big opportunity for Radiance to get a little bit of neutral pressure on the map. Pick up the Oracles, try and get some wards down. See if you can make sure that you got ward control on that left side so that that red buff invade doesn't happen again. Radiance do a very good job of keeping pressure up, and now Hurrywin in a little bit of trouble.
I like this from Aurora. He was trying to force Hurrywin to ult there, but ends up getting stopped by that stun from Scream. Even better peel from the eUnited jungler, who I think has really come into his own since they added Baskin onto this squad. At times, Scream seemed lost to me and wasn't quite sure where he should go, but it feels like he knows what his place is on the team now and has really come into his own. A great little play from him as Hurrywin has to fall back in mid. took a bit of damage. Guan, rather Aurora piloting the Guan, getting aggressive, but it's Adapting who's rotating over to left. Snoopy has beads, should be safe, use them right away to get away from the Fields of Love, and I think Adapting might be done with this gank now, especially with Gino showing some presence, so Radiance just fall back.
That's a tough loss for Snoopy now, though. Any knock-up that comes his way, Gravity Surge follows up. There's so much damage potential from this Awilix already, going for the Brawler's Beat Stick first off in the build, that Snoopy's going to have to play incredibly safe in that lane, trading out his beads for Cyclone Spin's ultimate. Normally, if it were a 1v1, Rom would like to use the ultimate because it's a much shorter cooldown, but now he's going to be very weak for the next 2 or so minutes. You're going to want a huge amount of vision over there to make sure no rotations come his way.
Baskin takes a lot of damage. I think he was trying to work on the proxy, catches some extra damage from the tower and from Benji, but even still, with Colossal Fury up, it feels like there's very little kill potential on this right side. And Scream rotates over to make sure this blue buff goes down yet again. So this has been a relatively slow-paced game as Tings gets his beads forced out by Gino. Quite a bit of damage comes his way. Would either one of these teams you feel like need to be active about this early, or are they both comfortable waiting for mid to late at this point?
I think that normally you would say that you want Radiance getting a little bit more involved in the early because adapting on this Awilix is a huge power pick for your early game. Awilix absolutely shreds people around that level 6 to level 10 mark, but there's no real concern for either squad for getting out rotated or even outscaled come late game. I mean, you could be worried about this Hebo really starting to put some damage output out on the map, especially considering the abilities elected to go with this Rod of Tahuti. But I think that Radiance are comfortable taking it to the late game around these objective dances because they should have the sustain advantage through Guan Yu and Ra. So this slow pace, I wouldn't say absolutely benefits either squad.
I see is perhaps a buff invade coming through. Yes, it is. Baskin able to strip some farm from Benji. And how did this happen over here, Myth? At the beginning of the game, Radiance went out of their way to get Benji ahead of Baskin, and yet Baskin now has a 3-level lead. And Adapting, Lucas even get the kill here onto Snoopy, but not able to find it. Snoopy goes up into the air with the ultimate, but Adapting waiting. So is the Fields of Love, and nowhere for this Rom to go. But in comes Scream, can't find the knockup. Adapting gets away, turns around with the trade. Cyclone Spin hits Arc Bomb, and Tings with the snipe finds the 2 for 0. Radiance needed it because the solo lane was getting out of control.
Slight misplay from Adapting to not be able to find the Gravity Surge, but Aurora going deep in the enemy jungle finds Hurrywin, trying to pick up the red buff, does a ton of damage, and forces him back there. We could see Radiance try and make a play for the objective, having 2 dead for 10 seconds, and Hurrywin forced back to base, and it looks like that is going to be the case. Clean play, nice counter rotations, pressure on the map. If Aurora doesn't force Hurrywin back there, this Gold Fury doesn't happen. Radiance, it's been a game of micro plays, but this is the first big separating play on the map, and now 1,700, nearly 2,000 gold separating these two teams.
And they really needed that, man. Benji had fallen behind by 2.5 levels. Adapting was a bit behind Scream as well, but he comes over, gets himself a little stim package with that double kill over in left, and they get gold, and that has boosted them now back ahead here in left. 14-12 for Cyclone Spin, and even in the jungle ahead in mid is Baskin now in the middle of a little bit of a skirmish. He's looking for Tings, who disengages with all that raw movement speed. Baskin in a lot less danger now. The Colossal Fury has come out to those ults. Or rather, the ult from Baskin just gets forced. But eUnited still pushing up into the jungle. They end up falling back. Not a whole lot there to get.
Baskin does expend his Ankh as well, which is going to be a huge team fight loss. Now, Radiance, if they decide to fight on the solo side of the map, should have a slight advantage around this Pyromancer if they want to push this small mid-game lead that they've accumulated for themselves. But eUnited, again, not too far out of it, only about 1,500, but Snoopy under constant pressure.
And could be falling. Cyclone Spin falls as well, so it is a hunter for hunter trade. Adapting can't do much to Scream here on the backside of the fight. So he just heads back to lane and starts farming. Another trade ends up happening here. Mifflin, tons of action despite that slow pace those first couple of minutes of the game. Once we got beyond that 12-minute mark or so and second relic started coming through, these teams started to look for more aggression.
Especially around this duo lane as well. A bit of an unfortunate game for Snoopy as Adapting's been all over the side lanes all game. That is going to be Cyclone Spin's first spill of the match as well, about half a level separating these two hunters. It's not the biggest disparity in the long lane, but it is going to start to slowly accumulate, especially considering how willing Adapting has been to show up in the past. I don't think that's the last one we're going to see of him, or the last Snoopy is going to see of him, rather. So I think that if eUnited want to try and claw something back, they either need to fight wherever Adapting isn't, which has been around this solo lane, but killing a Sun Wukong is much easier said than done. Or we could see eUnited decide to keep the 3v3 up in mid and try and divert some of that attention, put pressure on the center of the map, and force Radiance to respond.
Looks like Radiance might get active here first. They drop down the Sentry Ward, consider starting up Pyro, but it looks like eUnited are too local for Radiance to feel comfortable with that call. So they drop it, head back towards their own side of the map. Still, though, eUnited are pushing up. Not a lot of farm here to take, so they're just kind of looking around. Baskin with the timer on these back harpies, though, knew they were coming in, grabs them, and is able to head back to his lane. That's probably a big part of the reason why Baskin's been ahead, just stripping farm away from the right side of the map.
Yeah, he's still been able to maintain this 2-level lead despite Radiance being able to control the neutral objectives so incredibly well. He's also been able to strip away that blue buff pretty consistently, and with the desynced blue buffs and Benji going for the push here, if Baskin's able to clear out that wave, he can immediately go in for the one-man invade. And it seems like Benji may have overstepped a little bit. A slight grouping from eUnited on that right side jungle is going to fizzle out as Baskin goes in for the blue.
Now, Myth, how do you expect these fights to end up happening in the late game? Because I gotta think Radiance are so reliant on their sustain and Aurora's engage on the back of this ult. But other than that, how is Radiance looking to start these fights? Because eUnited have a ton of ways to start these fights on their terms.
If it's for Radiance and it's not the initial initiation from Aurora off of the ultimate, it's going to be up to Benji. It's almost entirely up to Benji. Or maybe they try and split up the map a little bit and play it how Renegades does with the mid and jungle almost playing an active split push role around these objective dances, trying to split up the team fight of eUnited. But it is certainly very one trick as far as standard initiation goes on Radiance's side. As you highlighted, it can either come through a roar, a cat stun from Benji potentially, maybe Adapting finds a pull into a gravity surge, but it's going to be very hard for Radiance to take a team fight 5-on-5 once eUnited decides to group up as 5. And as you already highlighted, Scream can start a fight, Gino can start a fight, Baskin can W-key his way into a fight, just creating space. I don't think that Radiance have those exact same tools because their backline dive is slightly weaker.
These fights are going to be tough. Radiant's going to be very reliant, I'm thinking, on that sustain, as you highlighted earlier. From this Ra, from this Guan Yu, even the Cupid Hearts can add up, provide some mana sustain from Cyclone and the health for everybody else. Now, United are equipped to deal with it. They've got the Brawlers, the Curse Donk, the right tools. And we might see that in action sooner rather than later. This next Fury only 15 seconds away from spawning. Contagion, Brawlers, Curse, they've got the options to at least stop the in-combat healing, mostly from Guan. But when Radiance are able to reset and sit on this Ra heal, it'll be a totally different story, as the stun onto Aurora is how they start this one off, but Aurora is able to retreat. Gino certainly wants to keep this going, but might have to wait for Radiance to overcommit first. As in comes the Fields of Love, they really want to take this Kuzenbo, who responds with an ultimate of his own. Scream goes up, 30-man knockup is absolutely nuts, and Cyclone Spin has no way to escape. The snipes are coming through from Snoopy as well, that's decent damage, and now Aurora's low. Crushing wave to close the gap, and Baskin finds his second kill of the game. Now Adapting in trouble, Scream comes in with the rat, and exactly as anticipated, eUnited have too many ways to engage.
It just seems like Radiance wanted the engage themselves. They walked themselves into that fight trying to initiate. They don't have to go in there. The gold tree hadn't been pulled yet. You don't have to commit onto Gino the support. Instead, they almost hand United the fight. They could have backed up, used the sustain. Already Aurora was able to heal the majority of his health bar and then take the fight elongated. Use the tools that you have. If you have a sustained draft, play around it. But it seems like Radiance got a little bit trigger happy.
Yeah, I mean, Field to Love is their best teamfight ultimate. You can say what you will about Cavalry Charge, but it's Field to Love, man, and I don't think you can use that just on Gino when his ult is up. He'll just leave. And it's unfortunate, man. Radiant seemed to be a bit disconnected there, or at least disconnected between what they drafted and how they executed, and eUnited punished them summarily. Scream. I said earlier that it's felt like he's come into his own here since adding Baskin. Well, how does a 3-man rat knock up hit you? Because it hit Radiance like a Mack truck.
And it's only going to be easier for Scream to do with this Bruiser build that he's electing to go for. Finish it up with an Erendite in that new slot. Now, once he does ult you, he's going to be chasing down even faster than before in that additional power. It seems like he is going to be moving to the Heartseeker. I wouldn't be surprised if once he sells that Assassin's Blessing, he goes into another more defense-oriented item so they can stick around in these team fights a lot longer. But because of Radiance's draft lacking a little bit on the damage department, not as much true damage as, per se, a Hebo is able to bring, or even a Rom, it's going to be much harder, but eUnited, by the thinnest of margins, are able to confirm that objective away before BMT is able to work himself in. And with the Raw Snipe being down, they're going for the Fire Giant.
So smart. I mean, now Crushing Wave is the best confirm on the map, right? I mean, it takes Searing Pain to task even when it's up, as the Fire Giant's very low. Scream goes in, but Aurora is there to contest with the ultimate, but eUnited secure the objective anyway, and that means Aurora is mincemeat in the back. He does manage to survive, and now Hurwin is the one low. Benji comes in with the cudgel, takes care of him, but Snoopy has the snipe, and Aurora can't stay alive for long. Way in the back, Adapting is separated, uses the leap Feather Step to buy time, but Snoopy gets the double kill, turning back the clock for the eUnited Hunter. That's Snoopy of old. Fields of Love is used well here to disengage for Radiance. More than disengage, gets the return kill on the basket. A second Searing Pain comes through. That does bring Scream low. Perhaps Snoopy can continue to push with Gino. There is a damage sponge, but this fight might be done. Radiance strip FG off 2, but eUnited keep it up on some priority members.
But they're willing to keep moving forward. Benji leading the charge. BMT healing up a little bit in the backline, see if they can catch anyone straggling. Benji, you're alone up here. If you get CC'd out, you could lose your life quickly.
Very quickly, as Snoopy's damage is here to say hello. Even with just the Atalanta's bow, my man's good for 3 in this excursion around the Fire Giant, entirely in favor of eUnited, and Snoopy once more rolling in, looking for Cyclone Spin, daring him to turn around and dodging the Heart Bomb. So eUnited should reset at this point. They're up 3k, they've got FG on Snoopy, the most important member. Scream as well, he can use the split pushes. Gino has the sustain. Certainly they could still look to take down some towers.
And plenty of towers there are on the map. 5 remain standing on the side of Radiant. So much passive gold that should be able to go their way. Geno sustaining up the tower. Snoopy doing the damage to the tower. If Scream decides to, he can even go for a split push situation. And I don't think anyone on the map can take a 1v1 against him right now. Level 19 on the Rat has a huge power spike and a bit of tankiness. You're not going to send Adapting to 1v1 him as well, considering his Fire Giant buff. So now eUnited are primed to make a huge power play. Already nearly 3,000 gold in the lead. This could easily bloom to 8,000, 9,000 by the time they're done with these towers. And with Fury respawning in a minute 30, that's likely next on the menu.
Certainly will be. The mid-tier 1 goes down as an afterthought, as eUnited can go essentially wherever they'd like to. Mid is the call. Scream up in the ultimate right away. You'd think it's more for deterrence, but Radiance want to stay to fight, so Scream decides to dunk. Fields of Love lands and does catch Scream with a nice stun. The snipe comes through from Tings as well, and that means on the left side, very low is Baskin. eUnited may have overstepped here as Adapting steps forward and claims the kill. He wants a bit more, goes forward, but Crushing Wave from Irwin brings him low, but Tings hits nearly everything. Celestial Beam gets 1. Snoopy gets the return kill with his snipes onto Tings, and that means Baskin Hurwin traded for Adapting and Tings. Snoopy battling in the back, but Cyclone Spin gets the better of him this time, and the 3 for 2 favors Radiance.
That 1v1 between Cyclone and Snoopy came down to an attack speed diff. There was no stim available to the ROM, so he just loses out on the trade. Right there, clean defense from Radiance. It's a 3-man snipe from BMT that's able to separate that team fight and crush the aggression that we see from eUnited. But 1 minion's all you need for Ratatasker to get down with that tier 2 tower in mid, but Radiance have returned it in mid as well. Now they can back up to the Gold Fury, unless Scream's got something to say about it.
Scream nearby has Gino for support. Fury not up for 10, so they don't have to fight, but Scream blinks in, finds the stun. Cyclone Spin uses his beads, though, and is able to make it back out. Aurora has the stun that lands onto the Rat, but great peel coming out from Gino. Will it be enough, though, as in comes Benji? And that second ability, the Master's Will, proves to be too much as Scream falls down. That's great for Radiance, as now they have a chance to come back towards this Gold Fury, and Radiance's Tier 2 tower stand is making all the difference right now as they completely undercut eUnited's FG, and now they take the Gold Fury alongside.
It's a completely even game, 25 minutes into this match. No gold separating these two teams, 400, not even worth bringing up. It seems like eUnited weren't fully on the same page in that last team fight. They were separated. Somehow Baskin gets completely isolated on the side, can't even use the sustain from his ultimate, do the Ankh pick up from Radiance. If eUnited want to win this engagement, they have to make use of Baskin's backline dive potentially. He's going to be able to sit on the big M Tings very easy. He's going to be able to sit on Cyclone Spin, but he's going to need assistance as well. If Scream and Baskin group up together and dive with Gino on the tail end for either peeling the backline or working with them, that's where they're going to see the advantage. They can't allow big man Tings to hit another snipe like that one either. You can't line up for the collat. And now Radiance, with a surge and a recent lead starting to lean in their direction, are grouping up around the Fire Giant first. Defensive positioning goes their way. It's going to be a hard-fought battle, but I think eUnited are going to have the slight advantage trying to push in.
Radiance have evened this game right back up. As you said, a slight lead in their favor even as they get ready for one more Fire Giant dance. No beads for Cyclone Spin for another minute, and that is huge. He'll be vulnerable in the back, especially to a Scream dive. Beads coming up now for Herwin, but no Aegis for Snoopy for a little while longer, so he is just a smidge vulnerable as well. But with Baskin all the way over in left, eUnited here to defend. Maybe they aren't looking to start this fight just yet. They want Baskin to use this time to split push, get this wave pushed up and left before they start up this FG fight. But Radiance are not going to give them that time. They're surging in already, knowing they've got the 5v4 advantage. And Baskin does not have teleport towards. He's walking back the hard way. And I think that's why eUnited are falling all the way back to their tier 2. As Radiance are looking to start some kind of scrap. They absolutely want to throw hands right now and are trying to dare eUnited to come in. They're lining up outside the tier 2, but in goes Finji, caught out by a stun from Scream. He's low. Adapting blinks in, forces Scream to use the ultimate in response. Scream is heading over towards the right-hand side, dunking down, but can't. Cyclone Spin's ultimate's already been used to deter, and Snoopy is ulting as well just to snipe. Radiance have done their job. They'll be able to heal up all this damage.
Yeah, it seems like eUnited are having a hard time finishing up these kills, and it might be due in fact that Hurrywin elects to go for the Beads Aegis for his relics instead of the normal blink that you'd expect to see from Paul or Captain Twigsy. But now Snoopy caught out in the jungle, getting lazy on that blue buff, uses the Aegis, barely surprised, but Aurora finds the kill, and the chase is on.
Good crushing wave from Hurrywin. How's allowed him to disengage as Radiance do a great job to catch Snoopy out there lacking a bit. That means Radiant now can start at this FG with a huge 5v4 advantage. They're low on ults. Tings will be up soon, but Baskin and Gino have theirs. That's great disruption if they want to get into contest. Fire Giant now down to a quarter, incredibly low. Gino uses his ult. Radiance secure the objective. Searing Pain coming in big, and now United have overcommitted. Gino's out of health too, as Cyclone Spin gets the kill. What about Herwin? Where can he go as Adapting comes in? Feather Step, and that's one more kill for Radiance. Make it 2 as they shut down eUnited's counter-engage. They'll take the tier 2 and right. And Radiance with FG around, everyone can do whatever they want. It looks like they want a right side Phoenix. They're going to barrel in, and eUnited not even here. They sent their 2 remaining members towards mid. They don't even get it, and that's it for the Phoenix.
Those minions are going to be enough to take down the mid Phoenix on their own, and it seems like Radiance are moving into the Titan. It's not going to be the mid Phoenix push. Instead, they want to end.
Do want to end, but they lose Scream instantly. Baskin starting to melt as well. The damage from Cyclone Spin is here. Tings puts Baskin in a coffin, and the Titan comes down to half HP. Snoopy trying to do it alone, but Cyclone Spin's fury knows no bounds. It's the game going to Radiance as they take care of eUnited at 28.
Wow, Radiance cleaning up their act coming into this set. That was a clinical performance. We thought they were going to be struggling with the engages. Doesn't matter if eUnited's willing to just give them to you and walk into these fights. And Radiance look incredibly strong. This Guan Yu pick, a little bit of flavor out of Aurora. I think it fits his playstyle. He gets caught out a couple times in the early game, but once he does move himself into the late, uses the sustain incredibly well, re-engages every single fight. If Crushing Wave is down, Aurora was on him every single time. This new Radiance look, I'm about it, getting back to what we saw in the beginning of Phase 2.
This is pretty cut and dry to me, Miff. Could you think of an impactful fight that Baskin had that game? I mean, I cannot. I think that he had a good laning phase, but vanished in the team fight, and they absolutely needed him. That's unfortunate for United, but huge for Radiant. They find Game 1. We'll find out about Game 2 in just a few minutes.
Welcome to the
Well, welcome back, everyone, here to the SMITE Pro League as Radiance turned things around there in game number 1. Looked like an eUnited win, but we end up seeing Radiance kill the Titan towards the end. That's how you win the game, and find themselves up 1-0 so far. But Aggro, it is always worth mentioning, last time these two teams went up against each other, and honestly in the league lately, things keep going to 3 games, so don't count eUnited out just yet, especially because a lot of that early game was controlled by eUnited. It really is one, I think, just well-placed snipe from BMT that helps turn things around, as well as adapting, having a killer game.
He had a fantastic game on the eUnited, and that's exactly what Radiance needed, was for adapting to step up and be the adapting that we know he can be, which is one of the best junglers in the league, the best player in the history of the SMITE. You got to give it to him. I mean, the resume is too long for anyone but King Kenneth, and he played like King Kenneth in this one. The early game, he was fantastic. Mid-game, he and the rest of Radiance really fell off a little bit, and I think they fell back into what I think is now Radiance's biggest problem. When they fail to be the engagers, they really, really struggle, and they did do a bad job of that in this game, where they were not finding easy engagements, and their draft was not good at engaging, but Big Man with that massive snipe under the mid-tier 2 when eUnited had Fire Giant changes the entire course of the game, and then from there, Benji finds a good pick onto Snoopy on the blue buff, and then it's just 5v4 Smite, and that's easy for Radiance after the fact. You gotta let Radiance get the tools to be engagers, though, and I just don't know that this comp was great at that. They should be very happy they got a win, because I think eUnited threw this one, but Radiance earned it. I'm not saying they didn't. I just want to see them draft with engage in mind, and that's what I'm going to be looking for in future Radiance drafts.
Now, there's a point where me and you were watching the game, and we were just like, they literally just can't kill Baskin. He was 2-1-2 at the time. He ends the game 2-4-4, so they really did switch things up right there. I think that was the moment we started seeing eUnited get a little overzealous. Baskin specifically maybe getting into some positions where he's maybe too aggressive, and like you said, Big Man Teams helps set things up for then you to have adapting come in, Cyclone Spin come in as well, clean up some of those kills and really get them an advantage. I even laughed because they won that fight, and the first thing I said was, wow, you win this fight, you rush 3 remaining members to a tier 2, and the Ratatosker on the other side by himself with a lonely minion and Fire Giant took his tier 2 faster. So it was like a little bit of a juggle up where it still seemed like Radiance didn't have a good grip, but then it happened a second time and then a third time, and they were able to seal the deal. So we'll have to see if they can either keep that last feeling of that game alive here in Game 2, or if eUnited can scrub clean what they had just done there towards the end as we go into picks and bans for Game number 2 here. You had already mentioned maybe not a lot to get aggressive with or maybe initiate on there for Radiance. What kind of changes do you think they could make that keep the essence of that team that they just won with, but improve it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, adapting played so well in the eUnited, I don't think you want to take him off of something like that. And the sustain coming from the Guan and Aurora's damage was very, very relevant in that game, but I think waiting around for eUnited to make a mistake and then allow Benji to blink Tiger Stun someone is not exactly a winning formula for Radiance in the long term. If you're going to go with something along the lines of the eUnited in the jungle, pick something for Aurora that can set him up. Get Aurora the Bacchus or something along those lines to get in there and be an initiator and set up these team fights a little bit more easily, because eUnited, I think if you give them a run back in that game, they probably win that one. They just made a few too many mistakes to end up pulling away the victory. I don't think I'd be comfortable doing something like a run back here from Radiance. You can't count on adapting, having a great early game, and Tings free-handing a 3-man snipe when the game looks dire.
So far, take Game 1 picks and bans. We'll go ahead and repeat it. You've got the Cerberus, the Yanis. Last time, this was a Persephone. We'll see if Radiance stay true there. I can't think of many reasons to change, because it still feels like a good ban against eUnited. Yamoja, Hercules over there on the other side for eUnited. We'll have to see if they stick true as well to what they took care of last time around. Persephone, once again, it feels like Whirlwind, you get him on something slightly less comfortable than, let's say, the Yanis, and he becomes a little bit easier to handle, but he does have just a few of those picks. That's where this Persephone comes in. I think they're doing a good job of isolating, again, some of the power picks for eUnited and controlling them.
It's very clear what their game plan is to keep them off those comfort picks, and Yanis, Cerberus, and Persephone, 3 of the best of them for eUnited. But I think if you're giving Rat Scream, or Rat to Scream, I guess, I could word it that way, is still a pretty good combination here for eUnited. I would anticipate Radiance going back to the Wukong. Benji did late game work, as he always does, on this pick, but don't forget that he was 3 levels down in the laning phase to Baskin's Vamana. It was just mistake after mistake from Baskin and the rest of eUnited after that I think really prevented them from snowballing it. But I think if I'm eUnited, I'm pretty comfortable going back to at least our first 2 in Kuzenbo Ram.
Yeah, so far it is almost rinse and repeat. This has been the interesting thing I think we've noticed a lot more lately, and it's been happening for some of these teams. It's not full willingness to go exactly back to the last draft, although I think if you're eUnited, you might be able to do something like that. But a lot of these teams have been able to take back and get 60% of their team, right? Tweak 2 members, and that will usually dial them in. eUnited, I mean, they take 2 of the letters of what you had said. They take the Ra, not the Rom here, as they lock it in. Does that feel like a good Herwind pick, or is this a kind of a 4th ban up against BMT, really?
Why not both? I think it fills the role of both here for eUnited. I mean, Hurry has been playing traditional mages for as long as anyone in North America. I mean, this guy was known for his Kukulkan back in the day. He's down to play the old school mages, and Ross certainly fits that bill. And I think it makes a lot of sense to take it away for big man Tings, who has looked good on a bunch of different other picks. Not to say that he hasn't. I mean, he still has the Neath and the Agni and picks like that. But when he just stuffed your Fire Giant push with a great freehand Raw snipe, I've got no problem taking it away. Now you end up being able to grab Ram anyways here for Snoopy if he wants it. Clearly a matchup that he struggled with a little bit in lane due to some extra pressure put on by adapting, but Cyclone was able to snowball that lane pretty well. But Snoopy turned up in the late game team fights for the most part, so I think I'm fine with eUnited going back to this. Now it just means that you might see the Ratatosker banned, you might see the Bastet banned again, but I think that eUnited can come away with a pretty similar comp, but with a mid laner in Ra that might do a little bit better than Herwin did on the Hebo.
Well, Radiance, it's not often, and I can't think of many years, really. I mean, maybe rolling it back to launch tournament, but that's just for me. I missed a couple there in the middle. Seasons, well, kind of last half of Season 4, Season 5, and Season 6 are just kind of a big blank slate for me. Radiance top picking a Guan Yu is not something that we get to see too often in pretty much any meta, so it's going to be fun to have that one come back. And it seems like the Wukong, Guan, and Cupid are all going back to where they were. It's now up to eUnited to see if they want to ban the Awilix, which came through even though there wasn't a lot of quote-unquote synergy with it, as in there weren't that many knockups for her to apply off of. But they're going back. It's Thor, potentially Raven, Bastet on the other side. The ban's more or less staying the same here. But you had mentioned, Radiance potentially shifting over to that Ratatosker. If that does get taken away, what kind of world would you want to live in there for eUnited, and specifically for Scream?
If Radiance bans Rat in this position, Nem is still open. It leaves you pretty CC light in your mid 3v3. Kuzenbo has good CC, but it's single target most of the time. It's a little bit unreliable in terms of setup. So I think I would prefer to have a little bit more CC in my mid 3v3 than Nem, Kuzenbo, Ra. With the Erlong ban, I think you're very happy to just go back to the Ratatosker. Why not? For Scream, it kept you in the game. It did really, really well through the mid-game team fights, and then I think just really positional mistakes more than anything else hurt eUnited come the late game. So I see no problem as to why you wouldn't go back to something like the Ratatosker. But I like this as well. I mean, you already know your short lane matchup is against the Wukong. Clearly, Baskin was pretty comfortable with that matchup, getting the level lead that he did. And this allows Scream to get his counter pick last in the draft.
And all you have to do, realistically, if you're eUnited here, again, a little switch up in mid, or everything else going back to where it was, just change how you approach certain fights. That snipe not being there, as you had highlighted, means that you could potentially siege that tier 2 without having the fight and then the entire game flipped on its head just from one freehand shot. Although Kraken might not be the same amount of damage as the snipe, maybe hovering around the same area. AoE, though, and nice big fights. Technically, some knockups on that, but the Awilix run back, 4/5 here for Radiance running the same. The Poseidon's new. Does it slot in the same, better, worse than the Ra?
I think it's a little bit worse because Radiance does not have a lot of long-range damage with this composition. I mean, you compare it now to eUnited, who's got the raw snipe and just raw poke in general, ROM snipes. Poseidon I think of as a pretty short-range mage the majority of the time. Interesting pick from Scream. This is a great combo with Raw. I mean, it makes it very easy. You just grab them with the 3 and you toss them right at Raw. And you don't have to do any damage through the early to mid game because a Raw 1-4 combo will kill them. But this is a little bit scary up against the Poseidon, who can really crack on you as soon as you go for that 3 onto somebody else. It's a little bit scary, I think, for Scream. This puts the ball much more in his hands than something like the Ratatosker, where he can really work as a facilitator.
Now, this is going to be interesting. Something that, more often than not, we've actually seen Adapting picking up in this Mercury. And so a new look maybe for Scream. I just went to check it up. His win rate wasn't that high. It's because he's won 3 of the 7 games that he's been played. So maybe not the most successful, but if you're looking for a late game hyper carry, I don't think there are many gods that can do it better than Mercury. And you have the ROM on your side. eUnited changing things up, again, giving us some new spice. Let's see if it can keep them alive in this set here in game 2.
Thank you, Gore and Aggro, once more as Radiance, after winning and then kind of feeling like they lost it and then coming back and winning it, they're coming in to this game number 2 finally with a bit of momentum at their backs. Aurora reprising this Guan Yu support and adapting back on the Awilish. I feel like they've got some of these key pieces that can make this work here again.
I think they do as well. I'm convinced on the Guan Yu support after last game's performance, but Baskin taking a little bit of a skirmish in the jungle. The core members of Radiance are around, but it seems like it's going to fizzle out as he spots it out. And while we're talking about Baskin, I think that's the question mark of eUnited's draft right now. I'm going to need to see a lot more out of this Vamana in Game 2 than we did in Game 1, because as you pointed out towards the tail end of the cast, and as the gameplay pointed out in of itself, he didn't get a lot of value on this pick.
No, he didn't. I mean, he did get way ahead of Benji in lane, which is something, right? But it's nothing if he can't convert that into something in a meaningful team fight, right? So we'll see if Baskin can do it again in terms of establish a lead and then get a bit more results with that lead later on. But the game didn't go quite the way we expected really at all. We expected Radiance to use a sustain-based comp to kind of wear eUnited down, but instead Snoopy makes one bad positioning mistake, gets punished, and that puts him in a 5v4 they can't really recover from, and Radiance snowball it from there. This time around, Radiance feel a bit more all in to me. I consider Poseidon close range, much like Aggro does, someone who drops the Kraken from relatively close. So we'll see if they can make that work this time around.
Big man Ting's getting aggressive in the jungle, stepping up alone. Interesting play. Scream's right behind you. Hurrywind's in front, but it's enough to scare them off of the red buff, and it might be enough to set them up for their own invade attempt. Now Adapting moving in first. And I agree, I like Poseidon. I think it's a better fit for this comp as well, just having that additional ability to chase down with the movement speed from the tidal surge. But now Adapting caught out.
And does get some help coming from Tings, dropping that whirlpool, and Adapting does not have beads, elected to go with this blink so that his Awilish can hit the ground running. Put him in a bit of danger there, but no more trouble ended up coming. So Radiance had to see if they can make this comp work here up against eUnited, even though they know Baskin will likely rotate out with a lead.
Yeah, Baskin certainly going to get a lead if he plays it like he did last game, but already we're seeing that Benji's made some adjustments to his gameplay to help him out a little bit. And he's winning the poke war. I'm assuming he's going to be able to move in and try and steal away these back camps once he gets a couple more levels under his belt. It felt like Baskin was allowed to have free reign of Radiance's solo side jungle for the most part in the last match.
Yeah.
And that's an easy adjustment to make, just put some presence over there. If Radiance is a little bit more on time for these back camps with the blue buff, those invades are going to be much harder to come by. But last game we saw Adapting, rotating to the soul lane, and very early on put Baskin at a deficit. It hasn't happened just quite yet, but Benji's still getting the better end of this trade.
Yeah, I mean, Adapting came over right away. They first blooded Basket, and then we started worrying, oh no, maybe Radiance are back, and eUnited were able to climb back from it. But it just goes to show, as Aurora looks to see if he can find a perp buff on his own, that even with Radiance getting off to a good start, eUnited were able to find a decent mid-game for themselves. So, I mean, I feel like what happens now, just based on the way these teams have played, we don't want to overreact to it, man. There's plenty of room for eUnited to make a comeback, as well as Radiance to make a comeback from that comeback. and then find a way to close this game back out. So I don't want to, I don't want to read too much into what happens in these first 5-10 minutes.
But it feels like every individual play has so much tension behind it in this set right now. Like any singular play could be the straw that breaks the camel's back, the one thing that switches it around. And now Scream catching Benji out. If he finds the pull, it should be enough, but the transform comes through, knocks up both, gets him out of that situation alive, and he ticks over to 5 for good measure. The Somersault Cloud should be able to give him another layer of safety.
Yeah, if he even needs it. I think that ticking to 5 is a good reason why Baskin and Scream aren't even going to try to chase or look for anything more there. Just no way they get that kill. So good work there. Scream was the one looking for aggression over in solo, and it was answered out. A Cyclone Spin hits 5 first, drops the Heart Bomb on Snoopy Dash to come in close. Did he have it full stacked for the stun? Looks like no, and Snoopy barely able to survive. He did hold on to his bees throughout all of that too, which is pretty nuts. But how do you feel about this Mercury for Scream? We've seen adapting playing some here. Do you like his overall strength right now?
I like the strength of Mercury, but I say this about every single god that Scream plays. I'm not going to evaluate the strength of the pick itself until I see what wacky build Scream decides to go on the day of. Right now he's going to the Ninja Hobby first, which is a little bit standard. Normally you do see the Golden Blade, but I think Mercury as a whole is very strong because it allows you to find these early game ganks not through the jungle. You can walk through your towers. That's very hard to track this pick, and he's still one of the best late game hyper carries there is if he does decide to go for that crit build, as Baskin finds another gank rolling his way. Aurora now rotating over. It seems like this is everyone's answer to this new eUnited roster. Let's just go ahead and camp Baskin.
Try and put him behind in the early game. Limit his impact as big presence from Radiance on the right side of the map. Knock up into the ultimate. The target is Gino, but he's lived through it all using that ultimate. The CC immunity proves huge for him, and Gino makes it out. So a heavy commitment, the blink and the ultimate coming out from adapting. Not quite enough to find the kill, though it looks like they were able to come over and at least try for a blue buff invade, but even that not quite successful, as now Scream blinks in, forces the beads out from Tings, but a turnaround Kraken is the answer. Aurora completes the kill, and first blood goes to Radiance. It's now Snoopy gets aggressive with a Cyclone Spin in the left, but the Heart Bombs will keep him alive. Not going to be enough damage from Snoopy for the kill, though he does go up for the snipes and hits the first and third. That's enough for Snoopy to solo out Cyclone.
Aurora riding on the horse, trying to save his boy. Too little, too late. Snoopy's a hitman, but he doesn't know they're behind him. He stops for that one shot. That might be enough with Suku there, but Gino rotates in for that added layer of safety. No ultimate for Aurora. He's getting caught out.
Yeah, great work from Gino to have locked him down, and Heroine is rotating in as well, drops the heal, gets him extra movement speed, and a Searing Pain perfectly juked by adapting will not find the kill. Lots of action been in this set, all set long. And with this low HP, yes, adapting gets hit back off, but Aurora could still be in some danger. Get some help from Cyclone Spin as Tings tries to defend his blue, but that gets stripped away. They're fighting constantly.
And Scream, not even caring about his life there, just walks up immediately into BMT again after what happened last time, is able to steal away that red buff. Unfortunately for eUnited, the snipe from Hurrywin weren't nearly as clean as the 3 snipes we saw come out from Snoopy, but that's alright, we can't all hit them all. But clean play from eUnited, a solo kill from Snoopy onto Cyclone Spin under his tier 2 tower. That's gotta rankle the feathers at least a little bit for the young man over in the long lane. And again, it seems like each one of these individual plays might be just enough to open the floodgates, but Snoopy getting gone on. Cyclone's already lost half his health.
Snipe one miss and gives up on the others as Aurora is waiting for him when he lands. Snoopy runs towards Gino for support. Aurora is now committed up onto the ultimate. All this to try and guarantee this kill into Snoopy. The last hit is enough for the stun, but the peel from Gino is nuts. Enough though for adapting to come in and clean up that kill on this Awelish. Now it's trouble for Aurora, who gets pinned against the wall. Searing Pain connects, but Aurora still stands. So Scream comes in, Major Look barely connects as Aurora walks back into it, but adapting as the knock up into the full, into the Kraken. And Cyclone Spin takes care of the kill onto Mercury. They trade away Aurora for a kill onto Jungle Hunter. That's easily free.
Yeah, Radiance feeling pretty good about that one there. And it's been the counter rotations every step of the way that have been the determining factor for both teams. If United's able to find the counter rotation, they win the team fight. Radiance catches them slacking just a little bit. BMT rotates in with the big Kraken. Adapting finds the gravity surge, and everything goes well from there. But these fights have been largely over nothing. We haven't had too many invades going either way so far. Both teams have remained largely even. This is the biggest gold disparity that we've had the entirety of this match. Now 1,300 in favor of the boys in blue, but that's not nearly enough for them to feel confident to move in towards these neutral objectives just quite yet. Now we can take a time to look at these builds a little bit. It is going to be the Doom Orb for both mid laners. Big Man Ting's going to be the first one to finish it off as well with a level lead. That additional movement speed on this Poseidon is going to be huge. Both mid laners having movement speed in their kits means that both mid laners are going to be allowed to rotate freely to each one of these team fights.
Should be a big asset for Tings and Whirlwind, but I want to draw our attention to a combo that we saw almost grant Radiance first blood. Benji went Blink Knockup with the Ox form, and Adapting was there to follow up. That's not the easiest in the world for them to both be blinking in and following up off that knockup, but I wonder if that's going to be part of this core strategy. Remember, they do also have the Kraken knockup to feed into Adapting as well. This time around with this draft, there's a little bit more for Adapting to work with.
Yeah, I think Adapting certainly doesn't have to play nearly as active a role this time around. He can even play even further back and allow Benji to blink in, find the knockup, and then pull them into the entirety of his team. So I like this. It gives them another avenue for Engage on a team comp that was a little bit lacking in basic Engage. It's going to be mainly Guan Yu again, but now with this Awilix, they've got a couple more avenues to find these isolated team fights.
Snoopy trades his ult for Snoopy's beads in left. I think that's a trade they'll be happy with. Radiance have a lot of presence on this left side. 4 members here as they look for the purple buff invade. United have all 4 members here as well. Purple buff defended successfully, and Cyclone's pin ends up a little bit worse for wear, but they use the hearts, they heal up a bit, and end up leaving without having to trade very much. They still got those beads from Snoopy, so he will still be vulnerable to Aurora, to Adapting, to Tings. He's in trouble potentially.
Man, this wet noodle fight in the soul lane,
Oh, they're looking for
Benji
him.
versus Baskin, is so amazing. But Snoopy gets caught out on the left side. Your bead's already down, and Adapting finds the kill. No ultimates needed this time around. Unfortunate for them, but is that going to open up any opportunities? Scream is going to be forced into using his ultimate as well, and a TKO half his health bar. Radiance want the Gold Fury.
They do, and that's why they kind of camped over there, waiting on Snoopy to step up, got the kill. Kraken confirms the Fury, and they burned it quickly. Now, I do think Aurora had to use the Cavalry charge a bit earlier, so that one down alongside Kraken. But it's really just not going to matter. They've done all the fighting for now as they earned the Gold Fury, and they're able to isolate eUnited. Myth, this feels like we might be seeing a bit of that old Radiance, doesn't it? They're playing clean.
They really are. Radiance of the beginning of Phase 2 has hit their second wind, and just in time for the second, or the last round robin for this phase as we move into the world stage. I think it's a good time for them to start hitting it. We were worried that they were going to keep this downward slide. It's been, what, a 6 or 7 loss streak for Radiance coming into this set, but now it seems like they've really come back to it. They've cleaned it up. And I'm liking this playstyle, and it's not as if they're returning to an old playstyle like how they were with as far as team compositions go. This is almost a completely new look.
Or does get caught by the special delivery, but that's almost nothing to him. This pin against the wall is worse. Searing Pain connects to Roar quite low, but manages to survive. Should be able to sustain back up with that full stability as Benji looks for the stun, can't find it as Gino goes into the ultimate right away. So United make it out of there easily after looking for aggression onto Aurora that really only cost them the Searing Pain.
Searing Pain is going to be a huge tool if they want to isolate on that and try and make use of that cooldown being down. We could see Radiance group up around that Pyromancer, but instead, continue what's been working for you. Group up on the left side of the map, see if you catch Snoopy lacking a little bit. The peel potential from Gino is going to be so much lower now that Watery Grave is down, that if Adapting is able to find his way in there, he should be able to get a kill, but instead it's going to be Scream trying to make his way into the long lane. Be careful, Cyclone, he's charging the ult.
Cyclone has dropped it and manages to avoid getting grabbed by Scream, but the snipes do land, but that leaves Adapting in the thick of it, and Scream happily claims that kill. So 1 over and left going the way of eUnited with the 3 up against 2, but the counter rotation is on its way. Aurora showing up, but what can he do alone? Cyclone spend with no ultimate. Gotta make sure he's careful.
Uh-oh.
Scream blinks in the backline, drops the special delivery, and Cyclone Spin is in critical condition. The snipes are coming through, but Cyclone Spin body blocking great, but Whirlwind finds the snipe from downtown, and that is it for Cyclone Spin. Great peel from Gino means Whirlwind can get the double, lock down Aurora alone. Gino eats the Kraken solo, and Tings cannot do enough to recoup their losses. eUnited with a clean fight and left of their own.
What a clean rotation from Hurrywin as well. That searing pain might have been able to turn the team fight because Aurora was body blocking so well for Cyclone Spin. It seems like they were going to be able to win out on that engage had they been left alone, but Hurrywin opens it wide open. Big man Ting's a little bit slow on the rotation, is forced to use his ultimate trying to shut down Gino. Gino being a tank at this point, does not really take that much damage, is able to walk out of that one alive. And now we see a little bit of a skirmish on the back camps as Benji getting frisky. They should be able to get out of there just fine. Big man Ting's returning back to mid. I like this pace that we're seeing now. eUnited, despite being at a deficit, is very willing to bring the fight to Radiance.
They do seem to be. I mean, and also Radiance just seem willing to take a fight themselves, too. I mean, Cyclone's been ulted over there on the left-hand side initially, and they ended up kind of overcommitted into that fight. So they got to make sure they're rethinking these engagements for Radiance, because eUnited will take these fights if you give them to them. Worth noting that there are some big experience deficits starting to show up. Cyclone Spin with a lead over Snoopy. Things relatively even in mid and jungle, but Baskin again has the lead in solo. Could be in some trouble though. Big rotation from Radiance on this side. Knock up into the pull, into the Kraken, but Colossal Fury avoids the knockup. Doesn't matter though. 4 members is too many. No way Baskin can live, but the same thing happening to Cyclone Spin. He's dove underneath the tier 2. Aegis buys him time. The snipes are coming from Snoopy, and there's no world where Cyclone Spin lives. So 1 for 1 across the map, but Radiance are the ones on the side with a neutral objective if they want to go for Pyro.
And it seems like that is going to be the call, and it's the right call to make. It's only Hurrywin in range. He could go for the steal, but he doesn't have the vision. Tries to peek around the corner. Takes a little bit too long, and now he's going to get nothing for his trouble. My heart goes out to Baskin there, man. It's not easy for the mental to walk into your solo lane. That's the name of the lane, solo. That means 1. And then have 4 people drop all of their ultimates on you. I mean, that's a tough one, as well as the Ankh getting expended by Radiance there. So with so many resources being used, sure, you killed Baskin, but you lose out on your tier 2 tower on the duo side of the map as well as the tier 1. Cyclone Spin falls for a less resource-heavy kill. eUnited may have come out ahead ever so slightly, even though Radiance pick up the Pyromancer.
I think so too. They've opened up the map on that left side, and the Primal Fury is still up for contest. So eUnited could very suddenly have themselves a gold lead, especially with Hurrywin's Searing Pain being great confirmed no matter who is starting the objective up. Radiance get here first though, drop a sentry and control the vision. Even going to go ahead and start the objective itself. They want to force eUnited to come in and contest if they want this objective, and eUnited won't be there in time. Radiance burn it so quickly, Myth, and they're out of there like bandits in the night. eUnited never get to show up.
An Aberration fading away. Scream trying to bring back at least a little bit. Can't even find the special delivery there. Benji makes it out with the Ox form. And now, back to the soul lane he goes, meeting up with Baskin, but he's starting the Fire Giant.
Oh, they are, but they're not going to get away with this as stealthily as they would have liked. On their way are Radiance. Benji here first. Tings is nearby, but doesn't have the ult. Looks like eUnited are wanting the reset, but Radiance aren't going to make it that easy for him. Snoopy takes a ton of damage, so Benji goes on the chase. Stomps him, and Snoopy's absolutely done. Hurwin has already used his beads, so he is a bit more vulnerable if Radiance can communicate this and get back there to punish. But the cavalry's only just now arriving. Heart Bomb lands onto Baskin. And it looks like eUnited are out of there for now. They end up paying for this greed, looking for the FG. Radiance not going to start it up, though. They know a bit better than to fly too close to the sun.
Yeah, Hurrywin sustained. They know it. They don't want to fight into a full HP 5 versus 4, but instead they can rotate in mid and see if they're able to find a pick. Cyclone Spin drops the Fields of Love, doesn't quite find its way home. Scream able to walk out of that one. That should fizzle all the aggression from Radiance. They don't want to keep moving forward now, so it should return back to a state of farming. Gold, again, leading the way of Radiance, nearly 1,000, 1,500 gold in their favor. And Adapting in particular has had a very nice bounce back performance from his last set. Now 3-1 on this Awilish, looking incredibly strong. Electing to go for the Brawler's Beat Stick immediately into the Erendite, and now a hi-rez on the tail end. If he's able to hit you first, you might not be able to retaliate.
Certainly not. It's a lot of damage starting to come out here from Radiance just in general, but the meta now starting to evolve a bit more. The Wukong coming in and becoming a top tier pick. The Awilish played by Sam and Adapting. Things are starting to open up a little bit more for those who are worried you might be seeing a lot of the same stuff. Give these pros some time. They'll remember, they'll take a look around and say, hey, how come no one's playing Awilish? She sure does a lot of damage. And they're absolutely able to make it work for them. Now this game, about as close to parity as an 18-minute game can be. 6-6 in kills. Barely 1,000 gold separates the squad, and no big experience gaps have developed either. And with the Fury down, this next big fight might be over near Fire. We're still a bit early, 18:30. They might not want a big Fire Giant dance just yet. Maybe they'll wait on this next Fury to come up before they look for a big skirmish.
At this point, when there's no easy to group on objective, normally one team will try and put some pressure on the map. With all these towers still up, a 5-man group for this tier 1 tower, if Radiance so decide, is not the most dangerous play. If they are able to take the tower, good for them. It opens up the map a little bit and gives them the opportunity to go for an objective. If they take the tower and a pick, that's when we're starting to think Fire Giants are in the realm of falling. And it seems like Radiance is going to group up, but it's a hesitant push. They're not so far ahead that they could just walk in. They're waiting for an opportunity.
You want to force down the tier 1 tower, though. Push from Gino brings one member in, but Gino gets knocked up, pulled back in. Kraken comes out as well, and Gino goes down quickly, but maybe not cleanly. They've got Big Man Tings in trouble. The snipes from Snoopy don't land, so Whirlwind puts in the last bit of damage they needed. Meanwhile, Adapting gets counter-blinked by Scream. Great heads-up awareness, and he ends up finding nothing. Radiance want to push down the mid-tier 1. They do get Gino, but they lose their mid. And really not a whole lot more they can get on the back of it, but they're going to try to force down this tier 1 anyway. Benji looping around on the back to provide some disruption. Oxform makes his way through, and yeah, they end up eventually getting that tier 1.
A small win for Radiance, but now eUnited are feeling a little bit healthier. They've got the sustain from Raw, and Pyromancer's already respawned. It's going to be 10 seconds until Big Man Tings gets back up, and eUnited are going to run away with the Pyromancer again. But this grouping from Radiance, if eUnited back up too far, we can immediately see them fall back, go for the Fire Giant themselves. Instead, it seems like Benji's going to try and take down another tier 1 tower, get a little bit more gold in the coffers of Radiance.
Worth noting, the Oni Fury not that far from spawning. We're 30 seconds away, and that just opens up the map, especially with the left side Phoenix already exposed for Radiant. If eUnited were to grab it, it could potentially be an assault on their Phoenix that eUnited don't even have to be present for. So this next Fury certainly has some extra importance, you would think. We can do a quick build roundup as well. A Scream all in on this crit build. Rage into the Deathbringer right behind it with SCS to provide some additional prot shred. You got to watch out for Adapting. You already highlighted how much he's here with that Hydra's ready for his build too. So a lot to look out for with these big power spikes. Cyclone Spin way ahead of Snoopy has the Kins, and that's going to hurt for whichever frontline steps to him.
Yeah, not Gino, not going to be happy about that one, but it is going to be Radiance. First one's on the scene for this Oni Fury. This game is so tense. 21 minutes in, only 1,000 gold separating these squads. As a small skirmish occurs, Aurora going to back up and try to sustain through this battle as Benji tries to loop around. Neither team confident enough to pull the objective in front of the other. It's going to come down to who gets the poke, who finds the pick. Where are we going to go with it? And it seems like Benji's the first one in.
Goes to the back line. Snoopy has to roll right away. That means Aurora can come in and force out the ultimate. So Snoopy goes up looking for snipes. Doesn't find much. This is more for safety than anything, but Benji's waiting for him when he lands. A one-man army in the back line as Baskin keeps Radiance busy in equal measure. And now United are on the full retreat, so Adapting comes in, but great peel coming out from Gino. Push Adapting against the wall, and Snoopy gets the kill. Sonic Boom comes out from Scream, but Cyclone Spin wants to chase. Fields of Love comes out from him, and Scream manages to get away. But now Baskin knows his duty, looks for Cyclone Spin in the back, but Scream loses the battle to Benji. The Sun Wukong proves too strong, and now the damage coming out from Cyclone Spin, or rather from Snoopy, as he's able to put Benji down. That makes it 2-for-1 in favor of eUnited, but Kraken was still there. Tings drops it on Baskin to make it 2-for-2. Jungle solo for Jungle solo.
Big man Ting's getting caught out by Gino here, moving forward with the watery grave. He's going to lose his entire health bar. Cyclone picks up the kill. Now 3 members of Radiance remain standing to the 2 of eUnited. They're healthy. They can go for the defense. I would imagine Radiance tries to find a gank in the jungle. They can't just pull this fire giant in front of them, but they will. Hurrywin moving in.
Yeah, what'd you say they can't do exactly this? Hurrywin comes in first, backed up by Snoopy, so Aurora hops onto the horse. Beads come out from Hurrywin so that he stays alive. Snoopy has to use Aegis to maintain his life, and in trouble even still. The Harp Bomb lands, the stun is there, but Snoopy uses Beads to reposition. But if they can live, they've done their job. Radiance had to drop the objective.
That fight goes a little bit sour for Radiance, was adapting, dives a little bit too far around that left side back camps on eUnited's jungle. Nice peel from Gino, was able to turn that kill around, and then from there it felt like Baskin again wasn't quite able to do the same amount of separation that Benji did. How many times did we have to say Benji's name throughout the course of that fight because he was wreaking so much havoc? It seems like this Sun Wukong is just a huge menace for eUnited to deal with in the backline, and now we're going back to exactly where it started, around this Fury. But Radiance, we've seen how quick they can burn them.
Might even have been less than 5 seconds, Miff. It's so quick how much they're able to burn these objectives, and I can't imagine fire is going to be a whole lot different for them when they get there. 24 minutes in, and look at these charts, not even 2,000 worth of separation in either metric. It's easily still anybody's game at this point. Though you can't help but notice that the backline dive not quite there from eUnited. Gino's providing the peel, Hurrywin and Snoopy are providing the damage, Scream is getting back there too. It just feels like they're not getting enough from Baskin on this Vamana pick. They need a little bit more.
He's just not tanky enough. Anytime he gets healed, he's going to get hit, or goes into his ultimate for the heal. He's going to get hit by this Ankh, and now he's taking 20% additional damage from all sources. He's not allowed to play the Vamana of old. There are new resources now that make this god so much harder to execute on, and Radiance have already adapted so well to it. And now, pulling the Fire Giant, all 5 members of eUnited are here. It's going to be a fight.
Radiance drop it though, this is more of a bait. Aurora goes to the back line looking for Snoopy, who we know has no relics, but Scream comes through to provide some support, and Snoopy cannot survive all the damage. Kraken doesn't get much from Tings, but it does split up the fight, and that leaves Baskin alone in the back line. And even with the Thorns, they drop the Cursed Ankh, and there's just nowhere for Baskin to go. He is at least CC immune, and now Benji taking quite a bit of pressure as well as he deals with the back line of eUnited. Baskin barely survives on the tail end, and Radiance, without many ultimates, come back towards the FG.
Look, Benji was in the back line dealing damage and zoning. Baskin functionally was the same by running away, and that's the most value I think this Amana is going to be able to get if he's able to just escape with his life.
Fire Giant low, Fields of Love is there, and Radiance have the confirm. But in comes Scream, finding damage to the teams in the back line. That takes care of one of those FG buffs. Benji keeping Hurrywin busy, and he needs some help. Hurrywin, call for your team, head towards them, but Benji won't give you the option, hunting him down on the Wukong. Scream's been hit by the Heart Bomb, and on the back of Radiance, they're trying to see if they can catch up to him, but Scream just a little bit too far away. With Fire Giant on everyone but BMT, Radiance are still hungrily looking for fights.
Luckily for Gino, no one was able to turn around on him there. Had they decided to chase him out instead of Scream, it would have likely resulted in another kill in favor of Radiance. 4 members with Fire Giant. BMT the only one dead for the next 20 seconds, but there's still a lot on the map. Fall back to Pyromancer, get that free neutral objective, help you rotate out of base, and then regroup on these tier 2 towers. The defense of eUnited is a little bit one note. Baskin's going to have an even harder time creating space once the game simplifies on these Phoenix defenses. You can't walk into 5 members in the jungle. Good luck doing it inside of a lane where they can all see you clearly. And Scream has been having his most impact when he's able to find someone isolated. That's not going to happen when everyone's grouped up as 5. I'm worried about how well eUnited is going to be able to keep Radiance out of their base, whereas Radiance, their siege is incredibly strong. Aurora in this Guan Yu has been having a slightly harder time finding these engages inside the jungle, but now Cavalry Charge is going to have a much easier time finding these targets. It becomes so much more simple when you can see all 5 clearly. I think that Radiance might have a huge advantage moving into this phase.
Well, look at their builds. There's not a drop of dedicated magical protection in the lot, is there? I mean, Heartseeker is the last item for Benji. It looks as though they're daring Whirlwind to be enough damage to punish them on his own, and Ra is just not built for it. Your Honor, my client ain't built for that. And apparently that's the case here for Whirlwind. I mean, he's got good damage, certainly, but not enough to punish Benji and Aurora for building this way. I mean, it's a ton of Spectral, Mystical Mails, Sledges, and Void Shields. They've got fronts for Scream and Snoopy, but they are not going to let Whirlwind be enough on his own.
As far as I'm concerned, if Watery Grave is down for not Gino, Hurrywind's life is forfeit in any
100%.
single one of these engagements. He needs Gino to be in that backline, which removes another feature of United's comp. They can't use him with the dive. Baskin's been completely mitigated on the dive as well.
Gino takes a lot of poke at the start of this engagement, but look where Benji is! How does he get there? He's on their Titan! At this point, he's going for the wraparound, but the rest of Radiance aren't there, so Benji has to be careful, has to fall back. If he goes too far forward, they can just collapse on him, but this has got to be putting strain on the United's comms. Now Benji comes in, double knock up in the back, and Scream is already low. Scream's already out of the fight as Aurora claims his life early. Kraken comes through, doesn't get a whole lot of value, but neither does the Searing Pain from Whirlwind. That has opened up the door for the left side Phoenix to fall. Benji starts it all with his backline positioning.
Benji doing the most for his team. This guy is the difference maker right now, separating the team fight, nearly soloing people out of their own, burning the active, surviving every single engagement.
Fields of Love, huge this time. Gino ends up falling to the damage from Cyclone Spin, and mid-Phoenix is already low, so Aurora steps in first, drops the Curse Song and the Thorns, and no one can afford to touch him. Benji barely able to disengage at the back of the fight, but Whirlwind has already used the relics, and that means Benji can collect his life. Both Phoenixes are down. Radiance storming into the Titan room and daring eUnited to stop them, but they can't. Radiance finding the 2-0.
Radiance back in form, it would seem. Looking pretty good in this set. I'd say United. Well, sorry, they had to make an example of you this week, buds. You've been on the rise, but Radiance is taking your momentum.
They absolutely are, and I think you already said it best, man. That felt like solo diff to me. Benji was an unstoppable machine in the backline, doing all kinds of damage. And you saw with the build, Void Shield, Heartseeker, Sledge, and Soul Eater, he had damage, man. He was back there hurting.
My man was playing the jungle. You might have put him in the short lane. He didn't want to be there. He wanted to be inside the back line, doing it all on his own. And Benji, man, this performance was fantastic. I don't know how much of it comes down to the fact that Baskin goes back to the Vamana that didn't work in the first place. Maybe we would have seen a little bit less there. It could have come down to the picks. But mechanical play, the ability to play the meta god, all of it's going the way of Benji this week.
I might need to see 2 in a row, but right now I'm leaning towards Radiance is back. We'll break it down a little bit more on the other side of this break.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to the SMITE Pro League as we close out the day here, Aggro. We're going to be looking at that last game where, at least for me, for a lot of it, it fell back and forth and back and forth. Radiance get a win, United get a win, and then just up until the very end, a couple of fights go the way of Radiance. And as you had put it, as Finch had put it as well, it kind of felt like a lot of it was on the back of Benji. He'd just jump into the back line, not die, and still deal immense amounts of damage.
All right, man, I've seen it enough, Gormizer. I've been holding my tongue. I've been trying to keep the mid laner bias inside, but I just can't. This god in Sun Wukong is OP, man. He does so much damage, and he never dies. He's got an infinite mobility. Every single button does damage. They're all easy to hit. And then he just goes into Somersault Cloud and lives for an eternity. Look at the damage he does to Snoopy on this play. Just make sure that he doesn't have any way to live. And then he just keeps doing it every single team fight. This god, I was just saying in our set, Gore, that, okay, maybe Wukong isn't as good as we thought. No, he's better than we thought, man. I don't get it. I don't know how this god's win rate is low. I don't want to take credit away from Benji. The dude's one of the GOAT solo laners, maybe the GOAT solo laner in all of Smite's history. But this Wukong has got to go, man. I mean, this is nothing that you can deal with as a backliner. This fight in particular, Scream's got to get his ultimate off in this spot. His beads were on a 4-second cooldown. As soon as he gets CC'd, he's dead. That just can't happen. I really didn't like Herwin's build in this game. No Divine Ruin for him. He didn't go it in the last game either against a Rog 1 and Cupid on the other side. We saw Gino pick it up then. No Divine at all. No anti-heal at all. Coming out of eUnited, I think, is pretty inexcusable with this much in-combat sustain coming from the Guan Yu. And Radiance just looked better today than eUnited did when it came down to it. Too many individual mistakes from eUnited led to them losing this game.
And it's, I think, even more interesting to note, eUnited, they had kind of that hot streak when they first made their changes, but now 2 in a row that they've lost, so they're going to have to look forward to it next week. Not necessarily going to be too easy for them either, going up against teams like Ghost and the Knights. They have a little bit of time to kind of rework themselves, but for Radiance, I mean, everything finally picking back up. 6 games in a row where you lose. At that point, I can't imagine how you feel mentally to finally get one back, even if it's against a team, you know, that's lower in the bracket, eUnited. It has to be a good way to just start planting your feet, especially as we enter the last third of this phase.
Absolutely. It's got to feel great. Just a breath of fresh air. You know, the sun is shining all of a sudden. Everything's feeling a lot better. But I'm sure this team knew it was only a matter of time. I mean, they've got so many veterans on that squad. Aurora is the king of a strong mental. He's rated to F7 every single game, no matter how dire it looks at any moment. I'm sure that he was there being a voice of positivity for the team. I don't know if it was making them feel a whole lot better, and I'm sure that getting a win is actually the best medicine that team could have.
I think, again, just great for them because of the fact that we always talk about the fact that you have to peak at the right times, right? I mean, go back to last year and literally look at the World Championship, right? You're looking at a team that was 6th place the entire year that comes through and peaks literally at the best time you could possibly peak in order to pick up that trophy. I think Radiance maybe start entering that conversation. It doesn't matter if you lose 6 sets in a row if you can still go to the end of the year and lift that trophy, right? So we'll have to figure out how that looks for them in the future. But what better way to get a grasp on how they feel and their outlook on the rest of the season than to go talk to them themselves? We have Aurora standing by.
Thank you, Gore. I'm going to do my best to not be too big of an Aurora stan here, but how are you doing, man? I know it's been a rough couple of weeks coming back from that time off you all had, but getting this win, and honestly in a fairly dominant manner, has got to help the team morale.
Yeah, it's helped a ton. Losing sucks, and winning's great. So I'm glad we got a win today. We're improving a lot still. There's a lot of things we still need to work on, but over the course of all the losses we had in the previous weeks, we got better and better from them. So if we keep building on that, we'll just be better and have chances to win more sets instead of losing them.
Well, I'm glad to hear the team's feeling a bit better. Talk to me about Benji, though, because he had a lights-out set for you all here today. The Wukong, I think, helping that out a lot. But what does it mean for you all as a team to have him over there in solo and be able to rotate in and have such big impacts for you all in team fights?
It's great. Benji's just really good. That's why I wanted to play with him at the start of this year, and he's just showing how good he is and what he can do, and he's just a great player all around, and I'm glad to have him on the team and playing as well as he is.
Well, it felt like part of this slump for you all is that some of your identity kind of went away, but I feel like now we're seeing you on this Guan Yu pick, and we've been seeing more of this Awilish coming out from adapting too. It's kind of felt like you all are getting a little bit more of that identity back. Talk to me about the Guan Yu for you in particular. Does that feel comfortable for you to be going back to this Guan Yu support pick?
Yeah, Guan's actually my most played god, I think, and SMITE. Actually, I think it's Ares then Guan. So I have a lot of Guan games dating back to Guan's release. I remember when Guan Yu came out back in 2012. He was the first like real god release, and I remember playing him. I played like 10 games that day. I only died one time in like 10 games. So back then he was insane, and I'm glad I can whip him out now, like 8 years later. It's kind of crazy thinking about that.
Yeah, almost a decade later, and you're still making it look busted, man. Great set here from you guys. I love seeing you all doing well. Thanks for taking time talking to me there, Aurora, and I'll get it back over to the desk. They'll close things out.
Thanks, Finch.
I think everyone who played Smite in 2012 just had like 3 gray hairs grow somewhere on their body because of hearing that one. Although it is maybe a good note. You go back to it, and Guan Yu's release was a kind of nutty one at that aggro when he came out, regarded as, I think, one of the most OP releases in Smite. Now you can find what that ult is actually where Amaterasu's ult comes kind of from, at least in terms of history. So there's a lot of fun stuff that's been going on with Smite, but it seems like Radiance are feeling pretty good about the way things went today, and at least over the outlook of their future. Still a little bit of a drop for them, 8-7 now, as they win their set today, but still now starting to trail Sanguine and the Knights, who are looking at an interesting week next week, and that's the one that I think is going to be pretty interesting. We're going back to our standard 2-game Fridays now that Radiance have made up all of their sets. We're back on schedule with everything for the remainder of the phase, and so you can look at this week, which was the last time you'll have a literal action-packed Friday afternoon. But it's going to be tomorrow, I think, another big one. SSG and the Knights, Sanguine and the Renegades. Renegades have been pushing these teams to the limit, as well as Knights, who have been on a little bit of a hot streak. Depending on how that goes, we'll finally have at least some sort of definitive third place.
That's a good point. I mean, SSG has looked so dominant as of late. That'll be a great test for PK. If PK can look competitive in that set, I think that's a good sign for them. And as you mentioned, Renegades has been really, really competitive, but unable to squeak out the win recently up against the Pittsburgh Knights. We'll see if they can turn that around against a Sanguine team that seems to be finding their footing at the exact same time that Radiance is also returning to form. So should be a pretty interesting Sunday battling it out for PK and Sanguine, trying to take third for each of themselves.
Although, they just give us a 65-minute game against the Knights. I can't think of a team I would be more scared of going 65 minutes against than Sanguine, because I feel like the last 20 to 30 minutes of it is just them farming us. Like, that's just how their team fights would go. Either way, it's going to be an action-packed Sunday. Make sure you tune in again tomorrow, 3 p.m. for the SPL as we close out week number 10. But for now, make sure you stay tuned, because the SCC is going to be coming on shortly. Either way, from myself, Aggro, production, and everyone, we'll see you tomorrow.
Peach it.